Welcome to the Professor of Perseverance podcast. I am the Professor of Perseverance, Dr. James Purdue, and thank you all again for coming in. Oh, you so faithful followers and listeners. Thank you. This show wouldn't be possible without you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Hey, our guest today, you're not going to believe this, but this is one that's going to kind of hit home with a lot of us. All right. At the age of 33, our guest was diagnosed with chronic illness in which her body's immune system started attacking her nerves. She was temporarily paralyzed, and over time, again, she was diagnosed with some other chronic conditions. Wow, it's enough to get kicked in the teeth once, but then to get hit multiple times, it makes a difference. She has spent years not only in physical pain, but also mourning the loss of her life, of what could have been, what it would be like. Hey, we've been there before. I've been there before. If I wasn't paralyzed, what would life have been like for me? And so here she is again. She's doing the same thing. What would have been? What could have been? So welcome to the show. Let me click this button. Let me find it, and it is Bonnie
Hi.
Hewitt, aka Posh Notions.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm better than I deserve, is what one other Dave Ramsey would say. Better than I deserve. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and how your chronic illness happened, what took place, and then how you got moving forward through life and things like that. So, I'm assuming with chronic illness, it's still there. It's still happening. So if you can go ahead and just jump on in, we'll take the Reader's Digest version. And at the age of 33, how'd you find out about this illness? And we'll go from there.
The Reader's Digest, is that the long extended version?
So we'll go as long as you need. I have no problem. It's your platform. I'm just opening the door for you.
I haven't heard that before. So yeah, at 33, in August, I actually was contracted. I'm not sure how you get what I got, but it's called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It was very sudden. I thought I was having an allergic reaction to antibiotics because it felt a lot like anaphylactic shock, which I had experienced multiple times prior to this. And I ended up at the emergency room. A long, kind of funny story to that, but I ended up there, and by the time the paramedics, actually, I tried to go to the emergency room. By the time the paramedics picked me up out of my vehicle, I wasn't able to respond to anybody, but I could hear and kind of feel what was going on. They thought I took a drug overdose, and it was an awful experience, to be honest with you, because they were doing lots of things trying to get me to come out of it. I spent a few weeks in the hospital. It was like having a stroke, and had to learn how to walk and talk and eat all over again. And then tried to go home and resume my old life, which was being an accountant and a single mom at the time. Um, Actually, I correct. My husband and I had just decided to reconcile right before I ended up in the hospital, so I was no longer a single mom once I came home. But I had been working from home and tried to go back to my accounting job and realized that I was so cognitively impaired that I couldn't learn new things. I couldn't retain information. My short term memory was shot. And I struggled through that for a couple of months because they told me I would get better, that this was going to, go away eventually. And then it didn't. And then, yes, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia initially. And at that point, told I was never going to get better. And it was the next few years was a really interesting journey. I spent the first probably 5 years trying to go back to my old life, figuring if I just did this, if I just did that, if I just pushed hard enough, if I could, do whatever, I could, you know, resume my identity. And that really, it wasn't the case. And I finally realized that that illness kind of saved me from myself, because although I wasn't doing like drugs or anything like that when I got sick, I wasn't taking care of my body the way I should have been. I wasn't eating properly. I was chronically stressed. I was pumping caffeine like nobody's business. working 11 hours to get 6 hours of work in from home, while chasing kids around all day. So I was also on over a dozen different antidepressant, anti-anxiety, sleep meds, you name it. I was probably taking it or have tried it. And my body was trying to give me subtle clues and I wasn't listening. And I tell people it was like it shut me off like a surge protector. Like, you're not listening and you're going to die if you keep going this way. And the only way you're going to listen is if we incapacitate you, basically, and just completely shut my system down. It was like a full reset. Um, but with that came a lot of pain, exhaustion, like I said, the mental and cognitive issues. Um, and uh, so let me think, try to summarize this. In 2013, I had my third child after about a year after being diagnosed or getting sick. I got pregnant with him, had him 2013, and then I was diagnosed very shortly after with rheumatoid arthritis because I had kind of like a lull in symptoms while I was pregnant towards the end of my pregnancy. And then all of a sudden it was like a train wreck of symptoms, and new symptoms came about when he was a few months old. Um, and I don't know, I had to wait. Well, I chose to wait, I should say, to be medicated because I was nursing. So I spent about 2 years unmedicated, prescription wise, for this illness. Um, and then finally, when he was about 2 years old, I started trying some different drugs, and not any of them that I took agreed with me. I had everything from, itching to a complete psychotic breakdown. I was, and I don't say that lightly. It's not like a joke. Like, I was in psychosis from methotrexate. And then in 2016, I had my fourth child, um, medical miracle baby. If anybody wants to hear that story, please reach out because it's quite an interesting one. But between my husband and I, we should have never medically been able to have any more kids.
We could bring you back for a different podcast on medical miracle baby. So we can do that another day. So
I have a
yeah,
few.
people just hang in for, and we'll come back to her at another time, and we'll get the mystery birthing.
Yeah, it's a interest. Both of my last two children were medical. Well, all of them were, but the last two, it just kept getting like more and more interesting how it was happening. Um,
Long they mom and dad and other places they teach you and tell you what causes these pregnancies. I mean, it took you a while to figure it out, huh? So
yeah, yeah, but we were actively trying not to grow our family. Let's put it that way.
okay.
But before my first one, I had a miscarriage and was told I was never going to have any kids. So it's been kind of crazy.
All right. Well,
But
yeah,
all
we
that,
can do that at another time because there's other families that experience the the miracle of having babies as well, and of course, as well to do the ones that wish they can have and never have. So,
yeah,
I mean, this would be a good topic for another time. All right. So now
sure,
let me back up two things that I've caught here first. One thing is you was talking about ignoring some of your body's symptoms. All right. And I had interviewed a couple other people, and they were advocates that people need to be able to be the first person to know their body, their symptoms better than their doctors. When your doctor knows more about you than you really do, something's not right because then you can't be an advocate for yourself if you're
exactly,
just waiting. So you've done what a lot of people do. They ignore signs. This will go away. I'll be all right, and go from there. And the other thing is, this is not an unfamiliar territory here. A lot of women, especially that are married, mothers, they'll spread themselves thin, taking care of everyone else and neglect their own health, lifestyle, and instead of giving them what they need as well. So that's not unfamiliar territory for a lot of women.
yeah, I agree. And I think for me, I was in a situation where I was working, single. Like I said, I was a single mom. My husband and I had separated. Some other stuff had happened in between while we were separated, and My son had just been was I was about to be diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. So he's on the spectrum. So he was having a lot of behavioral illness related behavior issues, like severe meltdowns and whatnot. And I'm not going to get into too much because he's an adult now, and I don't really like sharing his
Yeah, that's
story
fine.
without his
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
permission. But
That's okay.
it was I was doing what I thought I needed to do. So I was, he was in therapy. I was in therapy. He was seeing a doctor. I was seeing a doctor. I was working my ass off to make sure we could pay the mortgage and the bills. And I thought that I was doing everything that I should be doing. Um, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you have to learn these things with experience. And unfortunately, I was a hard head and I had to learn things the hard way. Um, and and I say had to because I've learned to not let that be the case. Because the more you say those things, the more you just make them true. You just keep manifesting hard ways to learn things, and I've decided to stop that because it sucks.
Yes,
um,
it gets old pretty quick.
it does, and when you realize, again, so 2016, like I said, my fourth child, I started Posh Notions when I was pregnant with him, to help ends meet, and I started making decals, and I'm going to try to condense this, but kind of mix the two together, the business and then what was going on in my life, because I'm just now doing these exercises to help myself. I told you before we came on, struggling with imposter syndrome because I'm having trouble connecting. How did I get from here to here? And why do I deserve what's over here? And
Yes.
my lovely coach, Miss Lily, was like, you're not going to find that out here. Like we said, with accolades and whatnot, you have to find that inside. So I've been working on these daily exercises to kind of connect the dots and realize how important the life changes and life choices I made, not just business choices, got me to where I am now. And it's been a good. It's only been about a week, but it's already helping. So I'll get back to that. But um, so yeah, in 2016, having this miracle baby, and fourth child, and my husband was working and I was not. I had been on disability for a few years because I couldn't work for anybody else. It was literally impossible. Um, I was still having a lot of cognitive issues, um, just a lot of cognitive issues, and in so December 2016, I was asked by a friend if I could make a T-shirt for her little boy, and I was like, I don't know how to do that, but let's give it a shot. So I figured it out, and that was my very first apparel piece that I had ever made because I said yes to a friend and to something that I didn't know how to do, and which is really important because you'll see how this kind of connects the dots going forward. Um, in 2017, I had a bunch more medical. I know we're focusing more on medical stuff, but the medical wise, in 2017, I broke my ribs on a bag of chocolate, which is a hilarious freaking story.
Wow.
Involving my then 4-year-old, in a Marshall's department store.
Hmm.
Um, and it was right before that I had surgery again, we'll say lady surgery. Um, and I had just had enough. I was tired of being sick and tired all the time. I was tired of waking up and living the same life. I was tired of being told I was never getting better. Like all of these things kind of culminated. I met my now best friend who introduced me to or reintroduced me to EFT therapy, and I started doing some of that. I met another friend who reintroduced me to essential oils and how they can help heal the body, help alleviate symptoms. And I had a really important discussion with my doctor in which I fired him and decided to get off all of my psych meds all at once, after over 20 plus 25 years of taking psych meds.
Hmm.
Because I found out I kept going in there every 3 months, like, hey, I'm having this, I'm having this. It was like the same things over and over again. And we'd switch to one med, switch to another med, cut out another med, increase, decrease. Like it was all over the place. I was like a walking pharmacy. Like I had so many drugs in my
I've been there
system.
before. Yes, I've been the walking farm, well, the rolling pharmacy for me.
Yeah.
I told someone a long time ago with all the stuff I was taking at that time. I said I'm and of course all the X-rays with my spinal cord injury and stuff and stuff. I said, man, one day I'm going to be just a glowing aspirin bottle. Huh.
Yeah. And that's it. And it was, I got frustrated. Excuse me. I went in there one day and I said, look, I was raging. Not as bad as when I had the psychotic breakdown, but bad enough that like I'm screaming at my kids about dishes, and I don't mean like yelling, like "Hey, you need to clean your dish," like screaming, like ridiculous. And I'm like, something's got to change here. And he said, "Oh, well, it could be," and I'm not going to mention the drug name because I don't want to taint
Yeah.
it for anybody else, but this one drug that you're taking, and I'm like, I've been taking that for 15 years. I've been coming in here every 3 months, telling you about these same damn symptoms, and you're telling me that the medicine you kept me on through my pregnancies is probably the cause. I was like, I'm done. I quit. Like I couldn't trust anything else that he said or was going to say going forward. Now, he's a great doctor. Like he helped me get through a lot of stuff, but at the same time, like come on. So I lost my faith in him and I was like I got to do this my way. I was like I don't want to take any of this stuff. I want to see what life is like without all these drugs. Who am I? That's another big part
Hmm.
of it because I wasn't I was, walking Wellbutrin and walking Zoloft and walking Trazodone and what like none of I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what some people would ask me like, "What do you do for fun?" I'm like, "I play with my kids." Like I didn't. I completely lost my identity several times over in the course of several years.
Oh, yes.
But it was the best decision I ever made because that was, I'd say, the second big leap in my healing journey. The first was getting sick in the first place and saying, trying to figure out how to do that. And doing all the things the doctors never said I was going to do, like come home. Like I wasn't supposed to wake up out of whatever this was that I was dealing with. Um, so coming home was the first big step, and then this was my next big step was um, getting all the toxicity out of my system. And I don't recommend anybody stopping their stuff cold turkey. I was very meticulous, very careful about how I quit different meds. I didn't just not take them all one morning. I weaned myself off. So I'm not giving anybody medical advice or
Well,
advising you quit cold turkey because it can be very dangerous.
you are smarter than me, and I'm like you. I'm not telling anybody how to do your prescription. Do the way the doctors recommend and everything. Follow directions. But I was stupid that I was going. I was taking these pills for muscle spasms to help keep my muscles tamed, and I kept having them, and so I increased my medicine without talking to the doctor, and I
Mm.
was still having them. So then I said, well, why am I paying this damn money out for all this if I'm going to have muscle spasms? So then I quit cold turkey, and I didn't sleep for 4 days. I was just fidgeting. And after the fourth night, I slept like 18 hours, and then I've been off of it ever since. Yeah, I do not recommend that. Follow your directions with your doctors. If you want to get off anything, follow what they have to say. But yeah, I was stupid. I did a cold turkey.
Yeah, and I did do someone like the one. I keep trying not to say the name. The one that I quit cold turkey, I knew it was safe to do so because I'd done it before. But some of the others I tapered off, and because I was on such a huge number of them, I knew I couldn't do that all at once. That could have made me very very sick. But yeah, I so it was at that point, laying in bed, broken ribs, had surgery, just told my doctor to F off, like, like now what? And I started researching like alternative therapies and whatnot. So it was, I'm trying to think, end of 2017, after all of that was happening around the holidays. And I caught I think I was looking for EFT videos or something, but caught like a Tony Robbins video and then caught a Gary Vaynerchuk video. And then just instantly was like, wow, there's people out there that do this. Like I wasn't a big YouTube person. Like if I was researching something, it wasn't on YouTube. It just didn't, not growing up with it. Like it wasn't my first go to at that point. It is more so now, but it wasn't then. And really fell into like Gary Vee's whole um, ecosystem. I actually decided in February 2018 on a whim that I was going to go meet him. And I took my two older children, and we drove to New Jersey one night
Oh wow, okay.
and met him at Wine Library. He was doing a book signing. And it was crazy because it was one of those, like I said, last minute split second decisions. We had come into money, and I say money because it wasn't, I probably should have done something else with it, but I was like, this is a once in a lifetime chance. I'm going to go do this. And that was a crazy thing for me to do. I'd never driven that far,
Hmm.
by myself with kids in the car. And it was phenomenal. And I kind of was, I want to say I was like hooked. I'm like,
You
there's like
didn't you
people
didn't
out here
drink
that do
you
this.
didn't drink yeah you didn't drink Gary V's Kool Aid and enjoyed it, huh?
I,
You didn't
I,
get it.
I did.
They say drink the Kool Aid and
I that was the first time I had heard of, like, had been exposed to, like, entrepreneurial community. Like, it was like, wow, there's all these other people. Like, not that I ever thought that I was the only one, but the community I had been involved before was like mostly Facebook and mostly other creatives kind of doing what I was doing, and a lot of them were doing a lot of trademark and copyright stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I don't belong here. A lot of the Facebook groups I was in for chronic illness, unfortunately, were not support groups. They were commiseration groups. And it was just completely unhelpful. So when I found this other group, and it was like the energy, but I tell you what, hustle culture can also be dangerous, because I also fell into the I have to be like them if I want
Oh
to
yes,
succeed
you still got
mindset.
to maintain your identity, and yes, and yeah, so you don't, yeah.
And it was more hazardous to my health than it was like hazardous to, well, I guess it was an identity thing. Now you say it like that. I had identified something in them that I was drawn to, and I was trying to aspire to. So I was just consuming all of this content. But I quickly found out that I'm not a hustle person. Like, I do hustle, but it's not my lifestyle. Like that, there's
Hmm.
it's hustle and rest and hustle and rest. And it's taken me quite a while to kind of grasp that. And I still get knocked on my ass if I don't give myself proper, time to rest.
Oh yes.
But it was a learning experience, and it was great. And I still love Gary. I just know that I also love the fact that Gary's content has shifted since then, very much so, to be kinder and gentler to yourself, but kind of hustle if and how you can. And it was it was great. So uh what ended up happening in 2018, though, is I was feeling great. So I emotionally was feeling great, all of these, and my health, my arthritis took a quick nosedive, and declined more in, I'd say, 6 to 8 months than it had the whole time, as far as where the arthritis. So it went from just being a little bit kind of in my hands and knees and ankles, to my arms, my elbows, my shoulders, and then into my spine. And in September 2018, I went to my doctor, basically bawling my eyes out. Like, I just heard that you guys found this in my spine. I've been having all this back pain. It's different than muscle back pain. If anybody's had this, it's literally in the center of your spine. For me, is where it is. And there's no way to stretch it out. Nothing I was taking, like, over the counter, was working. And she suggests, I can't say this. She suggested Humira, which is a biologic drug. For those of you who might be familiar, it's an injectable that you give yourself every 2 weeks. And here's me, terrified of needles, but also terrified of losing the use of my spine, because I've got two little ones at this point who were 5 and 2. And I'm like, I'm trying to avoid at all costs being in a wheelchair and being immobile while they're growing up. Like, is there any way
Hmm.
we can try to prevent this? Um, and I try to talk about that with as much sensitivity as possible, because I know people weren't given that choice. Um, but for me, I had the choice at that point to at least try to limit the damage that this disease was doing to my body. And so I said yes to the Humira, and it was the worst decision of my life. Um,
Okay.
I, again, I know it works for millions of people. I'm not telling anybody what to take or not take, but at that point, once I got 6, 7 months into that, I realized that my body just does not do conventional meds. Between psychosis and then the Humira, I got sick almost immediately. It was like having the flu every 2 weeks when I got the shot, worse than a flare.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just draining the life out of me. I was constantly getting sick with, like, germs, because it lowers your immune system, so that it stops attacking your body, attacking itself. Um, and as I'm going through all this stuff medically, I'm still trying to build a business. I'm still trying to make shirts. I'm still reaching out to clients. I was building the Unbreakable campaign in 2019, or that came, yeah, in 2019. Um, so in January 2019, Evan Carmichael came to Pittsburgh, and it was like 2 days before. And I'm like, I can't do this because I'm supposed to do my injection. And I couldn't do anything after. It was like being high, but not in a
Hmm.
good way. Like, I just couldn't function.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm never going to get this opportunity again. Like, guy lives in Canada. Do you know who Evan Carmichael is?
Oh yes,
Okay,
I've
okay.
heard of him. Don't know him, but heard of him. Yes.
Okay, so I was like, I am not. This is the fact that I even heard that he was coming here was uncanny. It was like a chance happening, and I'm like, I've got to do this. So I put my shot on hold for a night, and I went and met Evan Carmichael, and it was fabulous, and his whole ecosystem and his family, like, it was another amazing decision, and it was a kind of another upswing for me, to like a different group of entrepreneurial, you know, people, and a different culture than Evan. Now and Gary. Now Evan and Gary know each other. They're friendly. They've talked great things, but they do things very differently, right?
Oh yes.
And it was for me, uh, it was just great to see this other way of, kind of doing things. But when I came home and I did my shot, and I've got this, I'm like high of like, energy, and just like I got all these ideas of these things I want to do. And then I got the sickest I had been in probably this whole time
Okay.
since being in the hospital. And I was sick for 3 or 4 weeks in a couch bed because I still had two little ones to take care of. I just kept getting slammed with, like, we had strep and then pink eye and then a stomach virus, and I couldn't get not sick. And it was then that I was like, this Humira, this isn't working for me. Like, it's not relieving my symptoms. I've given it the 4 to 6 months that they say to get to, therapeutic, whatever. And I started having thoughts like, I'm going to quit. And I'll try one more month. I'll try one more month. Like, I'll see if I can get this to kick in and actually do what it's supposed to do. And by March, it had become very apparent that that just wasn't going to happen. And I told my doctor, like, I'm researching supplements and diets and this and that and the other. I was like, I don't want to take this anymore. And like, how do I get off of this? And she's like, oh, she wasn't happy. And I think it had a lot to do with like her own frustration with the fact that nothing was working.
Yes. Yes.
Um, um, and so I quit. I was like, I'm done. And I started taking different supplements, and it actually was very helpful for me. It took me about 8 months to detox from the Humira, longer than I was on it,
Wow.
which is insane to think about.
Yes, it is.
And uh, in that period, so that March I quit. January I met Evan. I started kind of hatching the idea for the Unbreakable campaign. It started as something completely different. March I quit the Humira, and then I kind of started building towards the campaign. I launched a campaign. Now the campaign's on hold right now because it kind of went in a direction I didn't want it to go, and I wasn't ready for what I had opened myself up to at that point. But in July, as I'm trying to launch this, excuse me, I'm drinking coffee. I met David Meltzer online, and David is now my mentor, and I consider him a friend. And I initially contacted him to get help because he's really good at content, and he's way more accessible than Gary was. At the time, David just operates differently as far as accessibility. And I was trying to get information, like, how do I get the word out? How do I do this? How do I was really stuck, and I was doing everything by myself. And I ended up having my first.
Spinning your own wheels, not getting anywhere.
I felt like I wasn't, but I was also trying to do a lot for one person and not taking into account how long this stuff actually kind of takes to build. It's like, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, because I'm watching all these people do these things, not really thinking about the fact that they all have teams that all do these
Yep.
different
Yep.
moving parts. And I was so hyped up to get this going. And so I ended up talking to him, and he said, I'll mentor you free for a month. I mentor anybody free for a month. So I filled the thing, and here he comes to Pittsburgh in September. And I had just gotten the email about, we're going to start a mentor you for a month or whatever, and find out he's coming to Pittsburgh. And I'm super psyched. So I drive down to downtown, go meet him. And again, it was like the energy was just like, wow. Like I was like, can I hug you? I was so excited to meet him. I was like, I need to hug you. I need to feel your energy. It was so fabulous. And I remember our very first meeting, I'm telling him, I'm like, I'm doing the campaign, I'm trying to grow this business, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I talked for like 5 minutes about all the stuff I want to do. And without even knowing me, right? He goes, you can't do any of this stuff until you get your health straight. And I'm like sitting here going, that wasn't the advice I was looking for.
That's right.
But it was the advice that I needed to hear from somebody else because I kept not giving myself quite enough time to heal. Like I would get to a certain point. It's kind of like when you have like a cold and you know you've had the cold for like 3 days and you kind of start to feel better and you want to jump back into everything you were doing and then the cold just lingers on for like 5 or 6 more days cuz you should have just rested for one more day and you would have been fine.
Right.
I've done
Right.
that so many times with this chronic illness because it's so unpredictable and it's like sometimes the stuff you do works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it takes way longer than you expect to get better from whatever external crap is going on and affecting your internal crap. Um, but he was right. And it was uncanny to me that this man who's 3,000 miles away in California met him and talked to him for like 10 minutes in person and then 5 minutes on the phone. And that's was what he knew. Like he just knew that. And like I said, I was coming off of the Humira and but I wanted to do so much. Like I have a really hard time with it's not even like a productivity complex, though I still struggle with that too. But it's like I've got all these ideas and it's like I want to do everything right now. Like I don't want to wait.
Oh, yes.
It's a patience issue I'm working on. But I'm like, I have this great thing and it's going to help people and I want to do it and I don't want to wait to do it, you know? And so anyways, I started mentoring with him and it was it was amazing. Like we would have a phone call every couple of weeks, very not long phone calls, short phone calls. And I was able to text him. And I remember in November, I think it was, I'm talking to him about all these different things that I'm struggling with because I'm trying to get my health straight. And it we started talking about like the importance of sleep. And I'm telling him like the different thing. At this point, I'm sleeping in my boys' room because my boys won't sleep, and I'm sleeping in this lumpy bed, you know. And he sends me these pillows. They're freaking amazing. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I was completely broke at the time. Let's just put that out there. I wasn't buying $50 pillows, that's for sure. And he
Hmm.
sends me this gift, and I slept so well for the first time in like 9 years. I couldn't believe how like amazing they were. And that was like one of the next big steps in kind of my healing was getting good sleep and prioritizing that sleep rather than putting my boys to bed and staying up for 3 hours to get work done. I was going to bed at 9 o'clock. I was forcing myself to go to bed because I needed that sleep. And I definitely kind of progressed more from that November till spring of 2020, gotten healthier in like 4 months than I had. Now, I don't want to say in the whole 8 years because I did come a long way, but like holistically, I was feeling better. My energy was up. My pain was down. So all those years I was doing well, but I was still kind of just surviving. And it was like I finally got to the point where I started to actually thrive.
Hmm.
And I was watching, like I said, a video from a couple of years ago that I did with a friend of ours and or acquaintance of ours. And the energy in that video, you could tell how tired and drained, and I couldn't focus, and I was skipping around and couldn't have a coherent conversation even then till, you know, and it was, I don't want to say not coherent, but it wasn't concise whatsoever. Like
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
I was constantly trying to go back to my thoughts and refocus. You can, it's very visible in this video. Um, and so spring of 2020, I finally, it was March 1st, actually. I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this business thing. I'm ready to figure this out. I'm ready to make money. I'm still working on my health, of course, but I've got a good solid routine that's helping me that I'm sticking to. I feel like I can do this now. Um, and I started flipping on eBay again to kind of to bring in income. And then, as everybody knows, the big shutdown happened a couple of weeks
Oh,
later.
yes.
So I'm just getting ready and I'm getting psyched up and I'm like, I'm ready to build this business and I'm going to sell my t-shirts because I was making logo gear. What Posh Notions ended up being, and I forgot to mention this, was basically promotional wear for companies and small businesses. I made all the stuff for the Unbreakable campaign. So basically, like you see, you know, somebody's plumbing business and they've got like a logo on their t-shirt and a logo on the
Hmm.
back and their hoodies, all that kind of stuff. That's what I was doing for a lot of like blue collar small businesses. Um, well, there was no demand for that. It had been completely removed by the the lockdown. And I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I was actually really excited. And this sounds, I know that there's been so much struggle and turmoil through the pandemic, but I was really excited because it was the first time ever that I was going to have somebody else at home to help with the kids, so I could try to build
Oh yeah, that's a little
something,
additive bonus. Yes.
and plus everybody was home and safe and I didn't have to worry about, was this one going to catch it? Was that one going to catch it? And for me being high risk, that was a really big relief to know that these guys are saying you have to stay home. It's not just me, so you have to listen.
Oh yes, 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 yes.
Because it had been dependent on me, nobody would have listened to me. So, a few weeks into the pandemic, a couple of people asked me if I could make custom masks, and I'm like, no, I don't know how to sew. I have no idea how to do that. Well, the third person asked, and I'm like, this is a sign from the universe. I've got to learn how to sew. So on April 8th, my son's 7th birthday, I declared to David and his whole ecosystem live that I'm going to learn how to sew. I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I have no idea if this is going to work. What are your thoughts? Do you think this? I had basically decided that I was going to make custom masks for people who could afford it, so that I could help provide masks to people in need who couldn't afford them. Because at that point, you couldn't get a mask unless somebody was making one.
Yes.
Um, and I went from not knowing how to sew to launching an Etsy shop 2 weeks later using one broken vintage sewing machine that was in my garage that didn't work. And then a friend let me borrow a sewing machine that was half broken, but worked well enough for me to learn. And I had 5 mask products up on Etsy within less than 2 weeks. I'm in a meeting. Okay, go. Come on. No, go. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
It's my 4.5-year-old. He's still having um, nightmare, spooky issues. He doesn't want to go
Okay.
into the bathroom by himself. And he's like, come on, come on. I'm like, you're okay. I'm right here. So yeah, that was my idea, was to do that. And I launched my Etsy shop. And because I was super lucky that I did it that way, or smart, or whatever you want to call it, because my Etsy shop took off pretty quickly. I had a high demand quality product.
Hmm.
And it was great, but I didn't stop there. Like, I never ever intended to sew. I got a sewing machine from some lady a long time ago. Hold on, I'm gonna push the door shut. I apologize, but it's gonna be
Oh, you're good.
okay. So I had never intended to sew. Like, I got that machine thinking, oh, I'm gonna make really cute clothes, and then it sat in my garage for 12 years. I'm gonna make kid stuff for my kids. That never happened. But I got so interested in making things. It was like this new skill, and I was at home and I could do it. And I started making pillows and clothes and all of these other things. And the really interesting part about this is I started at the worst possible time you could possibly think to start a sewing quote business, because the supplies that were available were being gouged. You couldn't get a piece of elastic for less than like $4. The
Oh yeah.
plastic is like 10 cents. And my mom brought me a bunch of fabric to get started and practice on. And my friend had given me a little bit to practice on. But as this thing actually was I was using t-shirts because I couldn't use them to make logo gear anymore. So I was cutting up t-shirts to make masks. So being super resourceful. But what's interesting is my mom started helping me basically buy up. Sorry, kids are screaming. Buy up
Hmm.
like basically women's basements because they were getting older and they weren't sewing anymore. So I was getting all of these like boxes and boxes and boxes of vintage materials and making new stuff with this stuff that nobody was going to use, right? It was going to either go to the dump or somebody passes away and they send all the stuff to the thrift store or whatever the case is. And I just fell in love with this idea of making new stuff from old stuff. Now, I've always been, since a kid, mostly out of necessity, one to very carefully, like I would make storage boxes out of like cardboard and, contact paper to like make shelves in my room or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and waste just wasn't a thing. My dad grew up during the Depression. Like, we did not waste. You just didn't do that. Um, but I fell in love with this idea of upcycling. And then in August of 2020, again, I went to David. I'm like, look, got this idea and I want to build this upcycling business. Do you think this is possible? Can I scale this? And he's like, absolutely. I'm like, cool. I got my green light. Now what? Like, what do I do now? I'm like, I had this fabulous idea. Well, around the same time, he was running these competitions on YouTube. And interrupt me anytime if you have any questions. On YouTube and Instagram called 2 Minute Drill. It's these pitch competitions.
I was getting ready to ask you about that 2 minute drill. I was looking it up while you were talking.
um, so he was running them on there. Well, sometime in like September, I guess, maybe, or October, whatever. They decided to take it to global television, and Bloomberg TV picked. I don't know if they picked it up or they pitched it or how that part works, but it was going to be on Bloomberg TV, and they were taking applications for people to be on the show. And I kind of toyed with the idea, and I'm in his private Facebook group where we talk about all kinds of different things. And I kept hearing about the pitch competition. So I started kind of asking and hinting around, never really fully like thinking that I was actually going to do this, because very early in, I was like, I have no competition. I was like, these people are like backed by the NFL and they've got $1 million revenue figures, and I'm sewing and making t-shirts on Etsy.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
I'm like, I don't have I didn't feel like I had what it takes, what it takes. And, but I kept asking him questions. I was like, well, how do I write a pitch? Well, if I want to pitch to an investor or a partner, how do I do this? And gathering information and studying and whatnot. But still looking at the people who are applying, I'm like, I don't belong here. There's just no way. Well, at some point in November, we're in private sales group or private Facebook group, and he says, anybody who hasn't signed up for the pitch competition, sign up because we're running out of time. And that means you, Bonnie. Calls me out in front of the whole group. And I'm like,
There you go. It's there you go.
I was like,
No pressure.
shit.
No pressure.
And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, I said, okay, well, I have to do this now because, like, I had been hinting, and I'm not going to let him down, and I don't want to let myself down. And I still waited like 3 more days before I filled out the application, because I didn't feel like this was something, like, didn't have a faintest clue how to do it.
Now, let me ask this question. This 2 minute drill, is it kind of similar, sort of, to with the Shark Tank?
It is, but what they've
Similar.
done is they want to focus on the art of the pitch. So rather than
Mm-hmm.
actually having investors like on the show, I haven't watched Shark Tank, but I've heard quite a bit. But from what I understand is those people decide on the show whether or not they're going to invest in a specific company.
Yeah,
They
it's
took
pretty
that
much on
whole
demand right
right,
then. You know yes or no if someone's going to invest into you or not.
right,
Yeah.
and they took that out because what they really wanted to do, from what I understand, is focus on the art of the pitch and teaching how to pitch through the show. And so I ended up applying like 3 days later, and had no idea what to do. I figured I'm gonna write my name, regular like kind of online form. Well, in the form, it has you write a mini pitch, and I'm like, I don't know what to write. But all of a sudden, like I said, this was another split second kind of decision. I decide one night at 11:30, I'm going to do this. All of the information just started pouring in, and I'm typing and I'm typing. I'm like, wow, this sounds really good. And I'm typing and typing some more on my phone. So I'm really actually like swiping with my thumb. And then it asks you for your target audience. And I'm like, I don't know. I've been trying to figure out my target audience for 4 months. Boom, it comes to me. And I'm like, holy crap. So it was like green light, green light, green light. But what's funny is then next came a whole bunch of red lights. So I sent the thing in, and a couple of days later, I start screaming, and my husband is like, what is going on? And I'm like, I got in. I got accepted. They picked me. He's like, what are you talking about? And I'm trying to explain to him what's going on, because I don't think I told him that I was applying for this, because
Uh-huh.
I wasn't going to do it. Like, I'm like, they're not going to pick me. I don't have anything to worry about, right? And I'm like, I'm texting my friends trying to explain what the hell I'm talking about, because they're not. None of my friends are really like in my physical space are entrepreneurs. They're like, I don't.
Uh-huh.
So explaining to them, and then I had to write the pitch, and I'm researching and I'm asking David questions, and I've got a couple weeks to do this, and I'm like, how am I going to basically make up for the fact that I don't have $1 million revenue figures? I don't have what I think I need, right? And I started writing my story, and I followed, David does have a guide about how to pitch. And so I started following them. Like, if I'm pitching to him, I'm going to follow his guide and be smart about this, right?
That's
Like,
right.
I'm
That's
going to
right.
give the guy what he wants. Even though there's other judges on the show, they're usually like-minded people. And I said, at very least, I'm going to look like I paid attention and I've been listening. And so, yeah, I spent a couple of weeks and 400 plus recordings and lots of deep breathing and figuring out where I'm going to record and lighting. And I had a friend send me money via Cash App so I could get lighting and stuff. I mean, it was crazy. But on the day of the competition, our power went out.
Oh no. Oh no.
And we didn't have any power till like 30 minutes before I was scheduled to go on. And then finally got my internet back like 5 minutes before I was supposed to go on, and got logged in and whatnot. And recording a TV show is really weird, especially for somebody who's never done anything like this. It's very strange. There was a lot of standing and kind of waiting around, waiting for my turn, staring at a blank screen. And then you do get to listen to everybody else pitch. And the whole time I'm going, wow, that was great. That guy's going to win. Wow, that's great. That guy's going to win. And I'm
Yep.
listening to like the feedback. And then I got my turn and I pitched and I had no idea, but my video was all pixelated because our internet was still bad. There was a huge ice storm going
Mm-hmm.
on. And I listened to the feedback, and here this whole time I'm going, I'm still no, I'm no competition. I'm no competition. And this guy's got literally NFL people backing his products, and I'm like, wow, that's fabulous. But when they got to me, and you guys can watch that, it's 2-minute drill. It's up on Amazon Prime, and also they have it on YouTube for anyone who doesn't have Prime. And I was season 1, episode 3. It's called the pitch that made us cry.
There we go.
That was me. But I gave my pitch and then just listened to the feedback. And what I noticed was they didn't give me any negative feedback. And I remember it going off of the thing. And the last couple came on and they gave their pitch and they got a little positive and negative feedback. And I had been recording the whole thing with my phone. And that was the first inkling that I got that I could have possibly had pulled this off. And I'm like, I effing won, looking at my phone and waiting for not even knowing, like, can the producers hear me? And I start kind of getting, and I'm just standing there and standing there and standing there. I'm like, no, there's no way. Kind of, like back and forth in your brain. And they
Mm-hmm.
tell you that the person that won, you're going to be the only one that shows up on the next screen. So it's a black screen, black screen, black screen. I'm just staring at this black screen. All of a sudden, I see me on the screen, and I'm trying not to jump down and scream. And I ended up winning $50,000 in cash and prizes on Global TV.
50? Wow.
Yeah, it was it was like the whole package. So that wasn't I didn't get 50,000 in cash, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the whole package was amazing because of everything they included to help entrepreneurs, digital services, VA services, more pillows. Those pillows came. I'm waiting. I can't wait to get more
There you go.
pillows.
Now the kids can sleep on good pillows.
I was so excited that I saw that was part of the prize package after the fact. I'm like, I love these pillows. And it was so surreal. Like the whole thing, I had to wait like another hour and a half because here's what happened. My video was pixelated. They're like, we need to re-record your pitch. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, I can't do this again. And this is like before I knew I won. I'm like, I can't do it again. So I did. And I did like 3 more times, but they couldn't get the video to stop cutting on. I'm like, look, I'll just record it and send you a copy. How about that? I'm like, I've got 400 of them. You can pick one. And they ended up running it with the pixelated video because it was part of my story. Because although my power had gone out, and I think that's why they used the pixelated video, because I did send them a follow-up video, but I think that's why. And even if it isn't, that's my reason. Is they
I would think
showed
it would
step
be
by step,
because, yeah,
like
the
all the
the
stuff.
hardship of the ice storm, losing everything, and
Yeah.
here's your perseverance. We'll work that in, and your perseverance to continue on and not giving up. Yeah, that had been part of it. So they'd rather used a pixelated, broken up video than a perfect one.
Yeah, and it was crazy to me because I'm like, how did they apparently the audio was coming through just fine, but it was just the video. I guess that's how it works. And it was just like, man, like all of that, no, 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 you don't belong. A lot of this was my own self too, like
Oh
saying,
yeah,
I don't belong, I don't belong, I don't belong. And I've talked to him since then, of course, and he was like, you just nailed the emotional connection. Like I literally made them cry, like on TV.
yeah.
And that wasn't my intention, of course. My intention, though, was part of David's pitch deck is, that emotional connection. You have to have that if you're pitching to an investor or potential, partner or whatnot. And he said, he's like, I didn't even, you can hear it in the episode. He goes, I didn't even care how much money you had or revenue or your sales figures because you got me in the heart. And then, like you said, perseverance, because I had talked about everything I had been through very shortly, of course, because you only get
Hmm.
2 minutes to pitch. Um, but I
That's why it's
talked about
called the 2 minute drill.
right, exactly. You get exactly 2 minutes, and they cut you off. There's no like trailing, and they can have like they shut your audio off at 2 minutes. That's it.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, it's been and just since then. So that was recorded in December. My episode aired January 22nd, and it's just been a crazy ride just in that short period of time. So
Well, congratulations. That's awesome that you get to see some wins, accolations. Earlier, you said we don't need to live off accolations, which you're true about that. I mean, there's a lot of things that goes on where we're helping other people with. We have no idea, but
right.
it's out there. It's happening. Okay, but there are times we need to be able to feel these wins so we know we're doing the right thing. And so this was a huge win for you to know everything I've been through, I've been consistent, not giving up, persevering, determination. The fight is finally coming to reality, is what I wanted. So yeah, but we have to get some of those accolades.
I think it's important. I think it's been a bumpy road since then, honestly. And we talked a little bit about this before we came on camera. Is learning how to accept that too, because like it was super exciting, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, back to real life. Um, and for me, it was like, how the hell did I get here? Like
Hmm.
it was such a short period of time to make such a huge leap. And having all of these doubts, and then I'm like, oh, your brain starts to rationalize it, especially when you've had like I've had a lot of trauma that I didn't talk about, and different abusive situations, and we're made to feel small and like you don't matter. And even if you do big things, that it doesn't matter. And it's like, oh, well, that was a fluke. And oh, like all of these things, my brain starts rationalizing negatively. And people are like, how are you feeling down when you just had this massive win? And it's like, because I don't, deep down, I didn't feel like I deserved it. Like I was worthy of that. Like I'm still comparing myself to other people going, still don't understand. I had to have David literally step by step help work me through like this is why you won. You did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. You actually paid attention. You actually practiced. You actually knew what we wanted to hear. You actually told your story. Like all of these different things. And it's like, okay, so I did do it. It was like almost like studying for a test, right? Like I did do the work. I did what I was supposed to do better than everybody else on my episode. Regardless of how successful my business was, it's not about how successful your business is. Like how well can you pitch?
Yeah.
And I nailed that. And for me, it's been a process of working through a lot of the worthiness issues that I've had for years and years and years and kind of buried because I was by not having quote unquote a successful business yet and not having this and not, I was kind of it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's like, well, I'm not there yet because I don't deserve it. Well, I'm not there yet because not saying this out loud, but of course in my brain
Well,
going,
we
well, that's why
we
I haven't
limit
done this,
we limit ourselves more than our outside environment. I
for
mean, there's a
sure.
lot of people that's going to say, no, you can't do that. No, you shouldn't try that. But we limit ourselves far more than everybody else because we don't think we're worthy enough, like you said. So,
Well, I think
and
when you take that and your brain amplifies it, like it you're everybody's their own worst critic, right? So
Mm-hmm.
on top, when you hear it once from somebody or twice from somebody else, us as we amplify, like, oh well, that must be true. It wasn't just one person. Now, not everybody's like this. Some people are like, "F you, I don't care what you think."
Exactly.
But I was not conditioned that way, and I'm still working on removing that. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, no, no.
um,
I was just saying that yeah, we're like you said, we're our own worst critics, and we think where we're at, we don't want to rock the boat to stay stable, and sometimes we get afraid to venture out because of the unknown of what can happen, and we think about the bad that's going to happen, not what the good that could happen.
and see, for me, it's been a lot of acting despite the fear lately. Like, I'm afraid of this, but I'm gonna, like, with the pitch competition, with I got interviewed for the newspaper. That was super scary. Like, I starting to get on podcasts and things was foreign to me. Like, I'm sitting in my bedroom with, gradually upgrading what I'm doing little by little by little. And that's the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
consistency that you were talking about. But for me, I wasn't kind of piecing that all together. Like the little tiny incremental improvements, which is why I watched that video this morning. I told you to see the massive difference just in my energy in less than 2 years is worth and is something to say, hey, I did something great, even if I hadn't won the show. Like I'm healing myself, which is fabulous.
Oh yes.
Um, but so I wasn't stopping. I used to do that. I used to have really bad anxiety. That was part of what I was medicated for. And it would stop me from doing things. I still comes up the analysis paralysis and stopping. But for all these different things, what's happening to me is is after the fact, trying to um, accept what I've done and accept how these things have built up so that I could become the person that I am. And it's been like this weird uh like relearning myself, relearning the same lessons that I've learned over and over again. I actually lost my train of thought, but just it's learning how to. Oh, I remember where I was going with this. So as a little girl, and a lot of us when we grow right, growing up, being raised, mixing up my words, we're taught to not brag because it makes people feel bad. Don't boast, don't brag, don't rub stuff in. Like all of this, especially as a girl. Sit down, be quiet. I was told many times I was too much to handle. Like for my mom, like as a little kid, I was very hyper.
Mm-hmm.
All of these different things. I wasn't told by her, but I was told by somebody else that my mom had said that at one point I was just too much, like for her to handle. I was all over the place. And I had heard that several other times. So for me, talking about, first of all, accepting these and then talking about these things that I've done is still really hard for me because I was told for so long by so many people, like, hush, like, you don't need to be out there telling people you're going to make people feel bad. Like, most people that have gone through what you've gone through aren't successful, and that's going to make those people. And I had to finally get to a point where it's like, I need to own this because this
Exactly.
shows people that you
It's
don't have to
possible.
say that. Yeah, exactly. You can still, whether you do what I do or you do something else, it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. But just because your doctor told you you're never going to get better doesn't mean you have to, spend your life consuming negative content and, you know, feeling like crap. Like there's things that you can do even while in bed, while sitting on the couch to make yourself feel better. And that's the kind of people that I want to help. It's like I was there. I was on the couch, in the bed, feeling miserable, not knowing what to do, feeling stuck, being told I'm never going to, this is my life now, basically, and having no hope until I got pregnant with my third child. And I was like, I can't, this is not how I'm going to live anymore.
So, I mean, this is powerful here that you're telling. I wouldn't feel that you're bragging. I feel that you're giving a testimonial where you were and where you've come from or where you've gone. And so it's just comparing, like you said, watching the video this morning, comparing what you were years ago to what you are now, what you were doing years ago to what you're doing now. And then you're just showing and giving hope to other people. This is possible to have a life that you want. You don't have to settle for what you have. So yeah, I don't see any
That's
difference in it.
that's a great way to put it, is settling, and I feel like a lot of people do that because they take their doctors. That, and none of this was immediate. Like, I didn't start taking supplements and immediately wake up one morning all full of energy and all my pain was gone. Like, it was a long process. Like, this, it's coming up on a decade now since when I was first got sick.
Hmm.
It wasn't, and I think a lot of people are impatient, but for me, it was kind of like, time's going to pass anyways. You know, do I want to feel the same exact way 5 years from now and knowing that I haven't tried anything to make it better? Or do I want to keep trying things and see where I can improve even just a little bit? Because the time's going to pass anyways. Like,
And you want to have the best life possible. You don't want to
yeah,
you don't want to sit and watch it go past you. You want to be involved in it.
I do. And I can remember, and it's weird that this thought is coming up right now, but it's everything's for a reason, right? I remember being like 13 years old and laying on my bed crying my eyes out because I had mapped out my life. Like, I'm gonna do, go to high school, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get married, have kids, and I'm crying because I'm like, by the time I do all that, I'm gonna be 35 because in my brain that's old, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know what was so upsetting to me about that, but I think that it boiled down to not wasting my life. Like, I wanted to make sure that those 20 years were also filled, now they were definitely also filled with lots of other stuff.
Yes, yes,
but but I think even at that young age, I knew that in some way, shape, or form, I wanted to do big things. Like, I didn't have any idea really what it was. I knew at like 15, I wanted to open a free clinic for my old neighborhood because I wanted to be a doctor. But yeah, it's really about, like, we don't get a do over. Like, I was lucky that I got a second and third chance, basically.
yes. With
Um,
your chronic illness, what could have been, and yes, to get these extra chances in life and trying to make the best of it.
right, exactly. Like, we only get one shot at this. And do you want to be 60, 70, 80, 90 years old and going, what did I do? Like, I don't want that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
regret. I think that's what really, that's one part that helps keeps me focused somewhat. And the other part is just the big things that I want to do once I build this upcycling company. The different I want to
that's right.
put into, I don't know if you got to see the pitch, but I talk about starting a voucher program to get clothes to kids in need, to help combat bullying. And then on the flip side of that, I want to create um, an emotional resiliency program for elementary school kids because I think we need to combat it from both sides. Kids are getting bullied, they don't know how to respond. It causes things like depression. And then the bullies themselves need counseling because they're learning this behavior from somewhere and they're acting out. And if we can kind of attack it from both sides and teach these things to kids at a young age, anti-bullying campaigns don't work for the most part because they're not targeting the problem. They're just trying to tell bullies to stop. And
Yep,
I don't know what bully on the planet has ever stopped just because you told him to stop. Like, that's
that's
not how
right.
that works. It just
That's right.
doesn't.
Yeah, there's got to come from different ways.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And my oldest was, I was bullied as a kid, but not nearly how much my son was tormented. Um, and I really feel like we can just do better for our kids. A lot of them, unfortunately, don't get that at home. And I think they spend most of their time in school, and that's a really good place to start doing that.
yes,
But that takes time and it takes money and it takes experts and it takes help. And, that's why I'm trying to build what I can build myself in order to effectuate that at some point. So,
so, well, you've been amazing. You're awesome. I'm glad that you didn't let your illness keep you in the bottom of the life, and glad you were able to have the strength and desire, the perseverance, to, again, to work that in, to be able to want to do for you. And again, it's not just for you. You're setting a great example for your children. You're setting an example for other people that are watching. You're serving other people you'll never know that ever exist. And so you're helping them. So I appreciate and admire that you're being able to hang in there and do that. So, Bonnie, go ahead and take a few minutes here and tell us how people can get a hold of you and get a hold of your store and social media and all that stuff.
Sure. So I am Posh Notions everywhere on social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever random other ones there are, like Tumblr. I have my website is poshnotions.com, and I also have an Etsy shop. I have the stuff kind of separated. Um, my handmade sewing stuff is more on Etsy, and my other stuff, custom apparel and whatnot, is on my website. My Etsy, you can search Posh Notions. It's the easiest way to do that. Um, and I'm also working on a book, so eventually I'll be able to share that with you.
And then
Um,
you'll be able to add author to your identity as well.
yeah,
So,
that's
and
true.
that's you can again just do the old Google thing, Posh Notions, and it's POSH, Posh, and then NOTIONS Notions. I'll have this in the description and the show notes, these links as well. So, Bonnie, thank you again for being here. If you can do one last thing for us, we know that people are struggling today. If you can give us some type of powerful message, something that's going to help someone get through today, that would be awesome.
So my best piece of advice is ask for help. I know it's so hard, and I know that there's a lot of stigma out there. But I'm telling you, from one survivor to another, and from my mentor David Meltzer, he has trained me to ask for help better. Ask for help. Reach out to a friend. I know sometimes it's difficult, because it feels almost like a weakness, um, but it's not. Asking for help is true strength. Being able to admit that, hey, I'm struggling and I need someone else to kind of get through this, whether it's to talk or to go for a walk or you need to see a doctor or whatever the case is. Yeah, just ask for help. And
I agree.
hope. Like, there's reach out to me, DM me. I mean, if somebody's struggling that bad, I am happy to talk them through, whatever's going on, and offer some suggestions if I have any. And at the very least, just listen. Sometimes people just need someone to listen to them, to get things off their chest and feel like they're being heard and seen and validated. Um, so I'm happy to do that through, Instagram DM, Twitter DM.
All right, awesome. And I agree with you 1000%. Ask for help. It's not a weakness, that's a strength to be able to ask and then to receive, and also keep hope alive. As long as we got that hope alive, we're in good shape. So, again, thank you for being here. Everyone else that's coming on the replay, be sure to like and share this out. Give it to someone you know it's going to help. She's got an amazing story on how her chronic illness happened and then how she was able to persevere. Hey, thank you for TINA. Thank you for coming in. And he is agreeing with you right here at the end. I agree as well. Asking for help is hard, but it's almost rewarding, support, and feeling better. Thank you,
For
Ti
sure.
and Na, for coming in. Thank you for this. And everyone else, hey, do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.